North Node.
So I started asking people, okay, you want to spice it up. If you had the spiciest relationship of your dreams, what does it feel like?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the answer again and again became excited intensity or intense excitement, some version of that. Like I want that feeling of excitement and intensity.
Yeah.
I was there in the beginning of the relationship, or there when I have an affair, or there when I try something new.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what sex magic creates.
Yeah.
Each time is this profoundly intense, excited movement of energy through your body and between the two of you.
Hi, I'm Paige Nolan. Welcome to I'll Meet You There, a place where heart-centered conversations are everything. Living what matters is the truest thing, and sharing the journey is the best. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Our guest today is Dr. Laura Berman, a world-renowned sex, love, and relationship therapist who has been helping people learn to love and be loved better for over 30 years. I found Laura through her award-winning syndicated radio show about 15 years ago. It was a live call-in radio show on Oprah Radio, and I would listen to it in traffic in my minivan. In the years since then, when I've had questions about sex and relationships for myself or my clients, I've been quick to reference Laura's teachings. Laura has been dedicated and prolific in her field. She's launched 2 television programs on Oprah Winfrey Network and hosted 2 other television shows on Showtime. She's appeared as an expert on every news and TV station you can think of. She's a New York Times best-selling author of 9 books. And currently, she hosts the popular love and sex advice podcast, The Language of Love. I can tell you from meeting Laura and spending time with her, she's generous with her insight and truly energized by helping us improve our relationships and our sex lives. So today, our conversation focuses on a practice Laura calls sex magic. She wrote a book about this practice entitled Sex Magic: Take Your Body, Mind, and Relationship to the Next Level with Spectacular Intimacy. You're going to hear her talk about the ideas and the experiences that led Laura to the choice to write this book. She shares a little bit about her childhood home that really influenced her path to becoming a therapist in the beginning of our conversation. And we talk about the biggest question Laura gets asked all around the world, and she gives us that answer here. We talk about profound pleasure and what presence has to do with it. We also talk about embodiment and what quantum physics has to do with great sex. And also what sex magic has to do with manifesting the experiences you deeply desire, not just in the bedroom, but in all of your life. It's all connected. This episode will definitely get you thinking about intimacy and how to experience it more fully and completely. And I hope this is going to get you inspired to try the practices that Laura offers us. She has seen sex magic bring a whole new layer of pleasure and connection to people's lives. And I want that for all of us. Enjoy this conversation with Dr. Laura Berman. Laura, thank you so much for being here. I'm so delighted, selfishly, to get this time with you. I have known about your work for years and years. When I had to, the first time I discovered the radio show is I was a teacher, and a mother asked me about talking to her young children about sex. And I didn't yet have children. So I went to Laura Berman and got like one of your early books about talking to kids
Yeah.
about sex. So I know I mentioned this to you before, but you are my first official guest around this topic.
Wow. I'm honored.
Yeah.
I'm honored
Yes.
to pop your cherry.
Yeah,
Talking about
exactly.
sex.
Perfect. Perfect. So I'd love to start with you before we get into
Yeah.
the book Sex Magic, which is a focus of mine today and an interest that I want to bring to the listener. But I'm also really interested in how people get to where they are. You
Mhm.
really live what matters. You've aligned your life in such a beautiful way. So give us a little context and a little background about you finding your path to becoming a therapist first before a sex therapist, and then
Yeah.
really focusing in on this particular topic for families and couples.
Yeah, it was, like most things in my life that I get really passionate about, it grew out of being pissed off.
Yeah.
But basically, I always knew from the time I was a young teenager that I wanted to be a relationship therapist, a couples therapist. I
Yeah.
think because I was, what you call a parentified child. I
Yes.
was my mother's emotional caretaker before I was even born. She got pregnant with me when they found out my dad was going to Vietnam.
Okay.
Um, and she wanted my sister was already 4 and was very independent and not very my mother was, depressed and
Yeah.
homebody, my sister was not. And so she conceived me to be like a baby doll for her, to keep her
Wow.
company, and
Yeah.
that was the beginning of my life
Yeah.
and my entire life with her, and I
Yeah.
adored my mother. She passed 12 to 15 years ago. She passed in, I guess, in 2011, so I don't know how many years that is now, but she, was my soulmate, I mean, but also in
Yeah.
many ways my child,
Yeah.
and I took emotional care of her, and then as I got older, I was right smack in the middle of my parents' relationship. They would confide way too much in me. Just out of survival at first, and then because I got kudos for it, I would solve their or help them solve
Yes.
their relationship issues, and
Yes.
my dad, was what we didn't understand sex addiction back then, but he was essentially a sex addict and was a constant philanderer,
Yeah.
and I would often be the one he told first,
Oh,
or,
boy.
so it was really inappropriate.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
boundaries, all of that, but as I
Yeah.
told him at the end of his life, as painful as it was and as much as it messed me up and led me down a path of making really dysfunctional decisions and love myself early on, that it really if it weren't for those wounds, I
Yeah.
would not have ended up wanting to do this and being able to help as many people. If I hadn't really wanted to understand how sex can drive someone to sacrifice everything and
Yeah.
to then I probably would have never been drawn to that topic either, but it was something that was really comfortable in my house. I did I
Yeah.
so I set off to become a therapist, a couples
Yes.
therapist, but as I was and I was very comfortable with sex. I wasn't thinking about becoming a sex therapist per se, but I just assumed it was part of it.
Yeah.
And during my training, you see couples and you're going to your supervisor and they're
Yeah.
saying, okay, you're telling them what the case is and they're giving you guidance. And so I would come to them, with a sexual issue, and my supervisors would, and even professors would look at me like I was some kind of perv. Like, why are these couples bringing sexual issues to
Yeah.
you? And
Yeah.
I was so puzzled by that. And as it wasn't that even that I was explicitly asking, so I started to get
Yeah.
really curious, first angry, like, "What do you mean? How can you be a couples therapist and not talk about sex?"
Yes.
But I very quickly discovered that the majority of couples therapists don't talk about sex,
Yeah.
which
It's we've come a long way, or even, like,
even
love in the
still
way that
yeah,
and the cross section of love and spirituality and sex,
yes,
which is kind of where you stand.
yes. Yeah, so I decided to get fellowship trained and more training,
Yeah.
and then I accidentally got famous as a sex therapist,
Yeah,
but
you did.
I've always been a couples therapist first
Yeah.
and foremost, and the 2 are really intertwined for me.
Yes. Yes. So early on in your practice, did you see particular themes? Did you have I have to imagine that you've been doing this work for what, 30 years? Over
Yes,
30
30
years?
years. Yeah.
So, I have to imagine that things have changed and also
Mhm.
not changed. So, talk to us
Yeah.
about kind of the beginning and then what hasn't changed and maybe what you see as hopefully an evolution on a
Yeah, I mean, I think
positive.
we yes and no. I mean, we also go in cycles, right? So when I first
Yeah.
started, it was during the HIV/AIDS epidemic,
Okay.
and sex equaled death, and nobody talked about it, and nobody would talk
Yeah.
about it, and couples, if they came with sexual issues, they were about to get divorced. It was like
Yeah.
the end. That definitely has changed. Couples come to
Yes.
see me much earlier in the process when they still kinda like each other, and I can deal with either way, but I don't have to spend
Yeah.
so much time getting you back on track before we address the key issues if you come
Yeah.
earlier. But then when Viagra came out, then everybody started talking about it, joking about it, discussing it, and then I really, discovered something else that pissed me off because all of a sudden all these women were coming out of the woodwork, and this was
Yeah.
back in the late '90s, early 2000s, they were coming out of the woodwork saying, "Hey, all of a sudden, my husband hasn't wanted bothered with me for 10 years, and now all of a sudden because of Viagra, he wants to have sex, and I'm dry and it's not working and I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Can you give me Viagra too?" And we were like, I'm not sure." And I started looking in the literature, and I discovered that we were basically 20 years behind men. There were all of these treatments for men. We understood the nerves and blood vessels that were central to sexual function in men. Went in even back then with robots to do pelvic surgeries in men to
Yeah.
spare their nerves and blood vessels when they hadn't even mapped, quite frankly, still haven't adequately mapped the
Yes.
nerves and blood vessels that are central to sexual function in women. So that became, my focus, and that led to my first book and women's sexual health clinics. And
Yeah.
then I got into menopause, and then that stupid Women's Health Initiative came out
Yes. I
in
remember. Yeah.
2001, I think it was, and women across the world and certainly around the United States were ripped off their hormones, and I was screaming from the rooftops, "This is a flawed study.
Yes. Yes.
This is ridiculous," but everybody was scared, and no
Yeah.
one would give, and now there's a renaissance with that. Now we're seeing so what I'm seeing now is that, thank goodness, we're like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
and there are all these people, "Hey, we can't put menopause in cla." Yeah, I've been screaming about that for 20 years.
Right.
This is
Right.
yes. So finally, that, Journal of American Medical Study came out saying, "Whoops, that study was flawed.
Yeah.
Hormones don't necessarily cause breast cancer, and you can take them." And so now we're moving into that, which is exciting, but we're also, I notice, at least in the media, moving into a more sex conservative attitude, which is
Yeah.
interesting. So not online,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
in the mainstream media,
Yeah.
it's gotten a lot more. So it's just interesting to see how things evolve, and also how I've evolved, because my
Yes.
interests have changed so much in terms of I'm what I wanna focus on, what inspire I've always I only wanna do and teach and help with
Yeah.
what inspires me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and people can feel that. There's a resonance, and
Yeah.
the enthusiasm attracts us to each other. When you came towards or when you moved towards sex magic, I think you were
Mhm.
coming off of Quantum Love, right? Your last was that your last
Yeah,
book?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had always been I like to say that I worked the first 20 years of my career in sort of the logistical field,
Yes.
the 3D field of
Yeah.
practicalities and from a sex standpoint, and these are still really important, like how to communicate and how to get your needs met and how to
Yeah.
perform and sexual technique and hormones and all these practicalities, which I still can talk about and talk about a lot and have written 8 books on.
Yes.
But I would say around the time my mom died, that was my biggest,
Yeah.
most impossible loss before then. And then I got breast cancer,
Mhm.
and had to stop my life.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of what I like to call my reawakening, because I was
Yeah.
fully awake as a little girl, but nobody in my family believed it or could explain it. It
Yeah.
was a very secular family. My father was God, and he was not a very nice God. And
Yeah.
so I just shut that stuff down when I was a little girl.
Yeah.
And then through this illness and everything falling apart and me needing to stop my life, those things that kind of break us apart often break us open. I call them AFGEs, another freaking growth experience that breaks us apart. That was a big one.
Yeah.
And
That
that
was after your mom's death, you got sick?
yeah,
Okay.
it was
Okay.
related to it. I mean, which
I
is
think yes, that's what I'm thinking in my
and
mind. Yeah.
I write about that in Quantum Love, and I
Yeah.
actually have a grief book coming out in 2026 that I
Yeah.
speak a lot about this. Now, what I just knew immediately when I had my mother died of what was essentially breast cancer, and I was, doing a 5-day-a-week radio show on Oprah Radio. I was her sex, love, and relationship correspondent
Yes.
on her show, and I was launching, during the time my mom was dying and died, a television show
Yeah.
on, Oprah Winfrey Network. And so I didn't have time to grieve, I didn't wanna
Yeah.
grieve, and so I didn't. I learned systems for containment that I still teach today, but in my case, and this
Yeah.
is what I also teach, you can contain, but then you gotta open up the container.
Yes.
And I was like, "Oh,
Yes.
this containment is working so well, I ain't open it."
Yes.
I'm not gonna
Yeah.
grieve, I'm not gonna go there, I have too much to do.
Yeah.
And I just didn't, and within a year of my mother dying, I had no risk factors, no genetic markers.
Yeah.
40 years old, and I had breast cancer in the same breast she did,
Wow.
and had to have a mastectomy and reconstruction,
Yeah.
chemotherapy, and all of that, and that's not to say if you don't deal with your grief, you're gonna get cancer, but we know that which you can't
Yeah.
be with, and if you're unwilling, to move that it's dis-ease, right? That
Yes.
inflammation, that emotional turmoil that isn't being handled
Yeah.
can create in different ways in all of us, so
Yeah.
it was definitely related, and I
Yeah.
realized that back then, and as I stopped my life, and especially as I was trying to help my kids whose lives were all one was became suicidal,
Yeah.
one started refusing school, one started having panic
Yeah.
attacks, and my normal therapy, neuropsych
Yeah.
evaluations, that kind of thing wasn't working,
Yes.
and it led me down a rabbit hole where I eventually discovered quantum physics
Yes.
and manifestation, and it
Yeah.
changed the way at first, I did it to help my kids. I discovered, especially with the suicidal one, that out of desperation, I went to see a
Yeah.
medium. I hadn't been to one since I was in college,
Yeah.
just as a joke in
Yeah.
college, but, I'd tried every other thing, so, desperation is the mother of invention, and I went, and she's like, "Let me read his field," and I'm thinking, "Oh my," "he's at school right now, but
Yeah.
okay." And
Yeah.
she says, "I he's clairsentient," which means basically he's an empath, he feels what
Yeah.
other people are feeling. She goes, "But the difference is he doesn't know the difference between what he's feeling, what other people are feeling, so he's
Yeah.
taking on those feelings, thinking they're his," which is what we see in a lot of kids who
Definitely.
are diagnosed with
Yes.
all these behavioral issues
And anxiety.
and
Yeah.
anxiety and all that. This is just the beginning of me understanding this. This was in 2010 or 11,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And, so she said, "Look, this is what you do." And she goes, "You have to be really careful about your mood when you go into the room with him." And I was like, "Well, I never show him that I'm upset." I was a conscious enough mother that I wouldn't, I'd get myself
Yeah.
together before I went into the room with my kids if I was upset about something. I tried to keep an even mood around them. She's like,
Sure.
"No,
Yeah.
that's not what I mean. I mean what's
Yeah.
going on inside you." And she showed me for the first time what I now understand. She didn't frame it this way as
Yeah.
moving your system into energetic coherence, which is one of the things I teach in quantum love, moving your energetic system into a place of peace because we're all human tuning forks matching each other,
Yeah.
especially someone like this kid who was really sensitive. So I started discovering that when I moved myself into that state before
Yeah.
I went into the room with him, or as I'm trying to put my anxious kid asleep who won't go to sleep for hours and hours and hours, if I move myself into a state of really peaceful calm without saying
Yeah.
words, he would immediately pass out.
Yeah.
So that's what started the rabbit hole, and then I started applying it to my relationship, and I was flabbergasted at, like, what a
Yeah.
Jedi mind trick it was, and then that's what led to quantum love, and part of that was quantum sex, and then that became sex magic in the
Yeah.
next book.
And can you tell our listeners, for someone who doesn't even relate to quantum or
Mhm.
energetic field, like just a little context? We've talked
Yeah,
about it a little bit on this podcast, but I feel like you have such an understanding of it now,
yeah,
especially as we get into sex magic,
yeah,
because I'll tell you just how I'm relating to your story, what's in my mind. One of the things that really sticks with me about this leap in your work, from like logistics and talking to kids about sex and how you can have better sex technically, to what you now teach, which is much more presence,
yes,
is in my own marriage. I met my husband when I was 19 years old. We started dating when I was 21, and I'm about to be 51.
yeah,
So, same partner,
yeah,
sexual partner for 30 years. And our worst sex, and we both agree on this, is our 30s. We had just 10 years of,
yeah,
like, not great sex. And at the end of it, now that we know how to talk to each other and can be reflective now that we're in our 50s, it was all an issue of being present.
yeah,
And so
and
I
in
think
your 30s, you're tapped out.
yes,
Yeah,
fertility, we had 3 young kids,
yeah,
really twins and then 1 close together. But to your point, it was energetic,
yes,
and I don't even know if we use the same language that you're using. I mean, I use it, he's a little like, I don't know, but
yeah,
I can bring him into it because language, it doesn't even matter. It's an
no,
energetic thing. So tell our listeners
yeah.
who are newer to this about that.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I will, and let me just say quickly first, that's when it was one as a couples therapist of 30 years, that was one of the coolest things for me with quantum love, is that I would
Yeah.
always need the partner's buy-in. to get
Yes.
the 2 of you on the same page. What I discovered and what I teach in quantum love and what's so powerful about it is if one of you starts practicing this, the other one changes, and they don't even need to know what you're doing.
Totally. You know what
S
else is interesting, Laura, before I
Yeah,
forget, because I'm thinking about this as you're speaking? This all happened in the aftermath of his father's death.
yeah,
So
that's what that's
another
gonna
co
open.
yeah, like, to your
It
story,
opens us up.
and we didn't even know it was a sudden death, so
Yeah,
we didn't even have language of what that was about, but it was so life-changing for him,
yeah,
and it just completely brought his identity and his ego, like, everything down to the
yep,
studs,
yep,
and so his revelation was, "Oh, I haven't been present,"
yes.
and my revelation was now that he's a little bit more vulnerable and I have the courage to say what I need because he's in a different state,
'Cause he's present.
because
Yeah,
he's present, I got more present because I
yeah.
felt safer to be
Yeah,
present.
and what I love about that is you're talking about the energetic impact
Yes.
and the logistical impact, right?
Yes.
The logistical impact is I never have felt super safe being really articulate about what I need because he would I'm just making this up, lash
Yeah.
out or blow it off or not
Yeah.
respond well or respond from a place from ego, and now that yeah,
Defensiveness.
defensive, and
Yeah.
now that he's in a different emotional state, right,
Yeah.
that's happening, but also energetically. So let's talk about the energy because that's a really important piece of this. At our core, you and I
Yeah.
seem solid. I seem I'm looking at this computer screen in front of me, which seems separate from me,
Yeah.
and that's true. But if we were to look at all of this,
Yeah.
including you and I, including everyone listening, through an atomic microscope at the most microscopic atomic level, we are pure vibrating energy.
Yeah.
And there is no separation between us. There's not even any separation between me and the computer. We're just vibrating at different frequencies. And
Yeah.
humans are all in order for us to perceive each other with our 5 senses, and this isn't me making it up. I get deep into the weeds
Absolutely.
of
Yes.
the physics and the science. Einstein, it came out and was really developing toward the end of his life. He was so freaked out about it because he didn't it was so different from his
Yeah.
understanding of physics and how the world worked. He called it spooky action at a distance because he couldn't explain it, okay?
That's
But
so good. I haven't heard that about him.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah. But basically, we are
Yeah.
pure vibrating energy, and in order to perceive anything with our 5 senses, which is how we perceive things,
Yeah.
it has to be vibrating in harmony with our body's frequency. So in essence, our brain is taking in 40 billion bits of information every millisecond, but we're only consciously processing 2,000 of them.
Mhm.
There's a whole universe of things happening around us that we can't perceive with our
Yeah.
5 senses. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're pure vibrating energy, and our body holds an energetic frequency. And humans are like human tuning forks. So when we walk into a room, or even when in a community like this of everybody listening right now, in order for anyone to be here hearing this,
Yeah.
perceiving this, they're all vibrating in a harmonic frequency with us, okay?
Yeah.
But what happens normally is that everybody finds the happy medium. What I teach in quantum love, and which eventually feeds into to sex magic, is that when you start to get really conscious about the energetic frequency you want to hold, because our energetic frequency is set by 2 things: to what extent we're matching the energy around us,
Yeah.
and our personal conscious and unconscious thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
For instance, guilt and shame is the lowest frequency our body can hold.
Yeah.
Bliss, joy, love, the highest frequency
Yeah.
our body can hold.
Yeah.
And so when you go into a situation, and this is what I teach people to do in their love relationships and work and life, even like before I get on with you, I like to set my body before I do an interview like this to an energetic state of open curiosity.
Yeah.
So I hold this state of open curiosity. You now match me. Everybody listening is going to match me. We're all going to be open and
Yeah.
curious together.
Great. I love it.
Um, so when you start for
Yeah.
me as a recovering codependent, I was severely as I was describing my childhood, you can understand why. I
Yeah.
was a severe codependent until my
Yeah.
mother died and I had this awakening, and that's when I went into recovery. But for me and anyone who's tends toward codependency, And quite frankly, an empath, usually we're codependent
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it's so hard to be around people in pain. We try to fix everyone's pain.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, what we do is we match everyone else's
Yeah.
frequency. We don't even think
Yeah.
to set our own. We're like a bouncing tuning fork matching everyone
Yeah.
around us. So the reason this is important is that this is kind of the secret behind the secret or the law of attraction. It's not enough to,
Mm.
you can write yourself a check for $1,000,000. Oh, I have $1,000,000. But unless you are in the energy of
Yeah.
she, he, they who already has the $1,000,000 in the emotional
Yes.
state of what it
Yes.
would feel like with that $1,000,000 in your bank as if it's happening right here, right now,
Yeah.
that's what manifests, right?
Yeah.
So, that's a lot of what I teach with regard in particular with regard to your love life changing, having your partner show up differently for
Yes.
you, how you wanna feel, and, I have this quiz on my website. If you go to drlauraberman.com, right at the top, it says, "What do you really want in love?" And it helps you
Yeah.
identify the 2 main feelings you wanna feel in love. And if
Okay.
you start cultivating that feeling inside yourself, and I can even at some point, if you want, walk you through quickly how to do that. If
Yeah.
you cultivate that feeling inside yourself and live in that, even,
Yeah.
several times a day,
Yes.
right? You then and look for opportunities. So let's say you really crave playfulness and love, right? You're walking down
Yeah.
the street and you see a playground. Stop and get on the swing for a minute, right?
Yeah.
Throw a ball,
Yeah.
like, seek opportunities for play, embody playfulness in your energy. You will be shocked at
Yeah.
all the playful people who come in, at the different way your partner shows up for that they start being you don't even have to do anything or
Yeah.
say anything. You are
Yeah.
embodying the frequency of playfulness, and that's magnetic. It pulls to you into your consciousness all kinds of opportunities
Yeah.
play, and it's the same with any feeling you wanna create.
Yeah. I think that the key to that, concept of being in the body, like, when I work predominantly with women, I just find so many
Yeah,
people struggle with dropping in, myself included, but now that I know I have a body, yoga really helped me with that.
yes,
Feeling safer with my partner helped me with
yes,
that. When he became more present, then I could be safe to say, "Oh, what's in my body?" and move gently into
yeah,
that inquiry. What do you find in your own work with conversations about dropping in? I have to imagine that there's some trauma there that prevents people from going in,
yeah,
maybe just a lack of knowledge. What helps people kind of to g that's a to me, that feels like embodiment is a big
yeah,
part of
yes,
a
and I
healthier,
absolutely, and that's a big part of sex magic. I
Yes,
teach a lot in that book about how to come more into your body. That is step 1,
yes.
is
Okay,
coming
good.
into
That's how
your
I'm
body.
thinking of it. Okay.
Because for most of us, yes, because of trauma, and I talk about trauma a lot in the book too and how to work with that. Because
Yeah,
just because you have a history of trauma, whatever trauma that was, where
yeah,
could have been that you were hyper criticized. It could have been that you were body shamed. It could have been that you were physically, emotionally, or sexually abused. It could have been that you were abandoned. It could, any
yeah,
number of things. But I talk about how to that doesn't doom you to sexual
yes,
failure, right? You can work with that. But I think for most of us, we are conditioned, especially, we're in this hyper aroused world, mentally
yeah,
hyper aroused. I don't mean
yes,
sexually, right? And social media now has compounded that a hundredfold. But very few of us are present in our body. So one of the things that I teach in quantum love and also in sex magic, and I started doing this as I was starting to work with this, back in 2010. I would put sticky notes on my computer, on
yeah.
my rearview mirror, on my bathroom mirror that just said ground. And
I
all you
love
need to
that.
do is take like 3 or 4 deep breaths in through the nose as you imagine a light shining down into the top of your head. And as you
Okay.
breathe in, it fills your whole body with light.
Yeah,
And then as you breathe out, the light shoots out your tailbone, going deep into the center of the earth, kind of
yeah,
grounding you like roots of a tree. If you just take 3 to 5 breaths like that, you will and notice before you start versus after the
yeah,
3 to 5 breaths, how different you'll feel more heaviness in your hips. You'll feel
yeah,
more presence in your body. You'll be more attuned to your senses, which is
yeah,
the root of sensuality, right?
Yes.
Sensual awareness is you have to be in your body to be aware of your senses and what you're even
Yeah.
feeling. And for most of us, our brains are so busy,
Yeah.
or we're having sex and we're thinking about like, how am I going to get the kids to
I was
soccer
just thinking
practice?
that. I like,
You
right
know?
when you said that, I was thinking of all the moments that I've had in
Yes.
client conversations. Again, I relate to these moments too. There's just this period of time, especially for a woman, because our arousal happens differently,
Yeah.
It's like you have to be in the headspace, and it's a
Yes.
whole body thing, and you have to feel
Yes.
safe. My clients will talk to me about that, letting go of the to-do list, and I
Yes.
have that whole, in your book, Sex Magic, you ask, "What are 3 feelings that you have during sex?" There are 3 different questions,
Yeah.
prompts to
Yeah. Yeah.
help you kind of understand if you've even been in your body or not, and you tell us, if you can't answer these questions, it's normal because it's a
Yeah.
sign you're not in your body. So I could answer them. It took me a minute, but it was so interesting that one of the first answers I had was tension,
Yeah.
because in the beginning, unless I have been grounded alone, like, unless I've really prepared myself for
Mhm.
that space that we're gonna go into together, I'm so tense, and I'm
Yeah.
like, and then I judge myself for not being able
And
to
that's so
relax.
normal.
It's so female, I feel
It's
like.
so normal, and it's part of our it's part of our gift as well because
Yeah,
we evolved to be multitaskers. We were the gatherers in the hunter-gatherer
okay.
society, so those who lived to pass their genes on to us,
Yeah,
we're really good at doing a lot of things at once, and we
yes,
are, but it really is distracting, and that's why so many women will say, "I need a massage. My husband has to massage me first, or I have to
yeah,
take." This is why at a certain season of life, especially if you're really busy and have kids and you're stressed, that and really sometimes all the way through if you stay
sure.
busy, but certainly during that season, like you
Yeah,
were saying of your 30s, you have to schedule it. And part of
yeah,
scheduling it is really looking forward to it, embracing it, getting a little extra flirty leading up
yeah,
to it, shaving your legs, but also giving space for coming back. So maybe that's,
yeah,
taking a bath, maybe it's taking a walk, maybe it's taking a yoga class,
yeah,
something that brings you down a little bit, especially if you're living a very high stress life because it's very hard for us. Men are like a microwave oven for the most
yeah,
part. They were the hunters.
yeah,
They can put the blinders on and focus on the task at hand. It's one of their gifts. It's also why you can't talk to them while they're driving and they can't
yeah.
do lots of things at once, but they are gifted that way,
Yeah,
habitually,
yeah,
so they can go from 0 to 60 pretty easily unless they're stressed about work or finances, and then
absolutely.
that gets
Yeah,
annoying. But other
yeah.
kinds of stress, they can push that aside. But for women, we tend to really need a gentle, we're more like a slow burning stove.
Yes,
So
yes,
and if, and a lot of what I try to teach women, because it's not just for sex, it's for so many. I mean, you know this since you've become more conscious of embodiment, that if you can create a regular practice
yes,
of coming back into your body, your body is your transceiver. If you
yeah,
want more inner guidance, more intuition, more attunement to the world, more
yeah,
awareness of opportunities around you for connection, for
yeah,
work, for whatever, you have to come into your body. You have to be walking around the world in your body, and most
yeah,
of us aren't. So as you start practices, whether it's yoga, mindfulness, meditation, or just or regular grounding throughout the day, it becomes just part of your system, of your daily system, and then you don't need so much time
right,
to down regulate in order to get
right.
present during sex.
Yeah, down regulate, that's
Yeah.
so good. I'm gonna start using my self-talk, my kinder self-talk. "It's okay, Paige, you have to down regulate
Down
because
regulate.
I'm impatient with myself. My husband's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
He's happy that someone's in bed with him."
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell
And
us, yeah. Tell us about, your definition of sex magic. So for the people who are we've gone into quantum, we understand where you are
yeah.
energetically, it's about presence, it's about being embodied. When you
Yes, the
arrive
sex
to this, yeah, tell us
yeah, I mean,
what
they
is
can have regular sex and have
yeah,
orgasms and feel good, but for most of us, the sensations of sex, the feelings of arousal and orgasm are localized to the genital or pelvic
yeah,
region, right? So sex magic is like I like to say it's turning sex into a sacred energy exchange. So you're
yeah,
doing a couple of things. One, you are learning how, and this, by the way, comes very intuitively. It's not hard to do. It just takes a little practice to get the mind
Yeah.
body awareness going. But
Yeah.
you can actually start to move that feeling of arousal through your whole body, out
Yeah.
the top of your head, circling it between you. So that's just on the physiological pleasure level.
Yeah.
You're now able to have full body orgasms, right?
Yeah.
Which are very nice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's like
and
a break from your day. Like, oh,
yes,
okay, I
and
just
it's
totally
very different,
release.
and it's very different that not that, regular orgasms aren't great, but this is like it almost makes sex a spiritual experience, not in a religious sense, but
Yeah.
it feels profound,
Yeah.
profoundly pleasurable. Kind of mind expanding pleasure. And by the way, the ancients have known sex, and even when you talk about the chakra system, the
Yeah.
sacral chakra is the seat of creativity.
Yeah.
And that is our sexual center. So as you start to bring this energy online and move this sexual energy through your body, it helps with health, it helps with
Yeah.
creativity, it's inspiration, it's like really beautiful and extremely pleasurable. And very exciting. Like, so for
Yeah.
me, most of my career with couples, the biggest question that I still get asked anywhere I go, quite frankly, in the world
Yeah.
is, how do you spice it up
Yeah.
in a long-term relationship? Because monogamy for life, when that was created, we didn't live past 50,
Right.
right? So monogamy
Right.
for life wasn't that long of a time.
Yeah.
Now we're living to 100 and it's a long time. And it
Yeah.
quite frankly isn't, we're programmed and we evolved for serial monogamy. I love monogamy and I'm a monogamist.
Yes.
But but it the thing we need to really have a beautiful connection is safety and security, as you
Yeah.
were alluding to.
Yeah.
But that works against novelty,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
what most people count on for excitement.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is key to sex magic because most of us are looking for spicing it up in the wrong places. So, like, for instance, I could give you 365, a list and props of toys,
Yeah.
tools, role plays, costumes, a
Yeah.
million things, right? And after trying all of them once or twice, when the novelty had worn off of those, you would once again say, like, okay, my dopamine centers aren't firing. The novelty
Yeah.
isn't there. I'm bored. Spice it up again. This is why so many people are turning to porn and threesomes and open relationships. They're looking for that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
They're looking for excitement in places that aren't sustainable.
Yes.
And so that was really my main inspiration for finally saying, "Okay, I'm gonna write sex magic," is like, this is intensity, what people are really once again, I wanted to know, everything for me comes back to how you wanna feel. If you
Yes.
want a new car, it's because of how you're gonna feel driving it or looking at
Yeah.
it in your driveway. If you want a new partner, how you imagine, you don't realize that everything you want is because you want a feeling. So I
Yeah.
started asking people, "Okay, you wanna spice it up. If you had the spiciest relationship of your dreams, what does it feel like?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And the answer again and again became excited intensity or intense excitement, some version of that. Like, I
Yeah.
want that feeling of excitement and intensity.
Yeah.
I was there in the beginning of the relationship, or there when I have an affair, or there when I try something new,
Yeah.
right? So that's what sex magic creates.
Yeah.
Each time is this profoundly intense, excited movement of energy through your body and between the 2 of you, and it creates intensity between the 2 of you. The level of connection
Yes.
that happens, especially as you start to circle the energy between you or soul gaze or try some of these other things,
Yeah.
creates a level of intimacy and excitement that is really profound, and I
Yeah.
find really makes a difference to couples.
And completely transcends quantity. A lot of times on that level of family life, it's like, well, how many times a week do you have sex? And is that
Yeah.
enough? There's just that surface level of
Yeah.
holding the whole thing together as opposed to really feeling deserving of
Mhm.
something. I think you've said the word pleasure multiple times now,
Yeah.
just to be worthy of pleasure. And, that's very obvious for women. That's a big topic for women, but I think it's even true of men.
Yeah.
That they have some barriers to that too. Is that what you find in your practice?
Yeah, I think we all do. I mean, it comes from our puritanical,
Yeah.
history. But at the same time, we feel guilty about it, but that's all we're doing. When we're
Yeah.
scrolling, when we're looking at porn,
Yeah.
we're all just like pleasure seeking. We just don't call it that, right?
Yeah.
And this is a different kind of pleasure. It is your birthright. We are meant to
Yeah.
experience profound pleasure, body filling, soul filling, joyful pleasure in our lives. And we're either shamed out of it, we
Yeah.
sublimate it and do it in all these dysfunctional ways that, stimulate the dopamine centers of our brain, but make us into little dopamine addicts where we can't
Yeah.
stop scrolling or looking at porn or whatever it is. And this is a way of creating that feeling of intensity
Yeah.
and depth and real full body pleasure that, makes you crack up or
Yeah.
cry or like
Yeah.
it's profound.
Yes.
And it's really beautiful and unbelievably bonding when you do it with a partner.
Yeah. And I love in the book how you talk about first starting with yourself
Mhm.
and the things that you can do to be more aware of your, like you talked about with your family, what energy you brought in the room to your son
Yeah.
and how you stay in your body. Can you give us a couple of, just for people listening, even if they're driving, like, accessible tools? I think you mentioned gazing, soul gazing as
Yeah.
one a few minutes ago. That might not be one you give now, but,
Yeah.
um, that is a big part of your practice. It's to me, you have a side of you that's, very interested in the concept and teaching,
Yeah.
and then there's a side of you that's extremely practical and, like, putting these big ideas into
Yeah.
the bedroom in a very real way.
Yeah, and the book is chocked full of exercises, specific ways
Yes.
to do these things, and you're absolutely right. Even if you're in a relationship with a partner who's gung ho and you don't have to be in a
Yeah.
relationship or with a partner who even knows what you're doing, I developed all these techniques, which by the way aren't, I changed them a little bit and made them more accessible, but they
Yeah.
all come from Tantra, Taoism, Kama Sutra,
Yes.
Kundalini, these ancient techniques that the ancients have known for thousands of years, but I practice it all on my husband without telling him first,
Yeah.
just to see what his reaction would be, so I would have a
Jedi.
complete
Yeah.
experiment. But so you don't
So
even have
good.
to, but I do feel that it's important to do all of these on your own first because of what
Yeah.
I was saying earlier, it requires a little bit of practice to get it down because 'cause you're squeezing your Kegel muscles and breathing and visualizing at the same time. It's not hard, but once you get it down, doing it
Yeah.
2 or 3 times during self-stimulation, it's so much easier to do with a partner.
Yeah.
But there are lots of ways. So, like, soul gazing is a great way, a beautiful kind of I like to recommend couples do it as part of foreplay and or during penetration. But basically, if you were just to explain it, sitting, right? You
Yeah.
sit across from each other. You put your right hand over your partner's heart.
Okay.
So their left side. So you're sitting across from each other.
Yeah.
Um, and then they put their hand on your heart. And then as you are synchronizing your breath,
Yeah.
you are staring into the eye above your partner's heart, above your hand, basically,
Yeah.
and they are staring into your eye above their hand, and it is shockingly cringy and intimate at first.
Yes.
Most people, they
Yeah.
can't even tolerate it more than 5 seconds
Yeah.
without giggling or cringing or whatever,
Yes.
and that is fine and
Yeah.
normal, but you stick with it and or try later again if you lose it.
Yeah.
Because if you can do that even for a minute, you will start seeing some things in your partner's eyes. You will feel like you're almost falling into their soul and they're falling into yours. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've ever tried this, Paige.
Well,
You
I'm
have to use one.
smiling, yeah, because we've tried it a couple times, and my husband is the initiator and curious about all this stuff, so he's open. So I have a partner
Yeah.
who's open, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
great. And I have to tell you, like, one of the things that came up for me was the vulnerability from the
Yes.
beauty perspective of, like, really being looked at, like, I don't know, maybe this is about my childhood. I'm from the deep South, so there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff around beauty and looking
Mhm.
pretty, but it was like, do I have more wrinkles? Did it? Because we don't, you're moving so fast, you don't
Yes.
stare at each other,
Yes.
and I asked him what he felt, he had none of that. He had
Oh, yeah.
no, like, self-consciousness around how he physically looked.
Yeah, I
So
love
it
that
was
you're bringing that up because
yeah,
we do I mean, that was what was hard. I tried this with my husband for the first time, maybe,
yeah.
10 years ago, whatever, and I'm really comfortable. I mean, I'm not an inhibited person,
No, I love
and
this about you, yeah.
and I was I he's totally comfortable with it. He was
Yeah,
staring right into my eyes. In my
same.
case,
Yeah.
I started to wanna touch him, and I realized what I was doing was trying to kind of distract away,
Yes.
and he's like, "Nope, nope, you just have to
Yeah.
stare at me," and I was like, "I can't, I'm
Yeah.
being seen too
Yeah.
carefully," it's very
It's
hard.
really hard, and it
It's
does get
very
easier.
cringy.
Now that I'm having you and I'm connecting with you, I gotta go back to it because we did it. Then I read Sex Magic and wanted to bring you on for about this topic, and so now you're saying it and I'm having the memory, but it's not a we haven't locked into it as a practice, but I can see how it would be
Yeah,
so powerful. So
yeah.
this is inspiring me
You
to
have
get
I
back to
want
it.
you to try it and keep trying it. I promise you after the 2nd or 3rd time,
Yeah.
it's gonna get really comfortable, and by the way, they're looking deep into your eyes, into your
Yes.
eye. They aren't looking at your whole face, and by the way, if you're with a man, they don't even notice your wrinkles or bulges or cellulite unless
Yeah.
you're constantly pointing it out to them. That's just not where their attention goes.
Yes.
But if you can do that as part of foreplay, even if it's
Yeah.
just for 30 seconds, but really powerful, there's a position that I described it's called the yab yum position.
I
Not
love that in the book.
Yeah,
Yes.
so the larger partner sits with back supported, legs out or crossed, and the smaller
Yeah.
partner sits on them, legs wrapped around their back, facing each other,
Yes.
and you can actually have intercourse this way,
Yeah.
right? So he's inside you, you're rocking back and forth and soul gazing at the same time.
Yeah.
Boom, crazy.
Homework, everybody. For those of you who are having sex or in a safe
Yeah, and you
relationship,
can
if you
soul
go to
gaze
those
with
guys.
yourself. I do it I
Yeah.
started doing it every morning because I'm now 57.
Uh-huh.
I about 3 or 4 years ago, I stopped all the Botox, Schmotox
Yeah.
injections.
It's so
I
overwhelming.
live in Los Angeles, as I know
Yeah.
you do, where that ain't the norm, and I'm like, "I am going to relish
Yeah.
I'm going to change the standards of beauty for myself. I can't change it for the world,
Yeah.
but I'm changing it for myself, and one of the ways that I do that is I stare into my eyes every morning when I'm brushing my teeth. I
Yeah.
go in my magnifying mirror and I soul gaze myself,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't look at all my wrinkles and all the
Right.
things and all the sags. I'm just like, "You are beautiful." At
Yeah.
your soul, like, look at
Yeah.
this body we get to have,
Yeah.
and I just really tap in and tune in every day, so if you don't have a partner, you can soul gaze, or even if you do,
Yeah.
you can soul gaze with yourself, but I teach you how to move the energy up your spine, how to circle it around your body, how to move it in between you. There's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of, different techniques.
Do you find that when couples practice this, there's an increase in appreciation and gratitude? Is there a link there?
Yeah, there's an increase in presence and
Yeah.
connection and, vulnerability and safety. You're really going to a beautiful, deep place
Yeah.
together,
Yeah.
and as I like to say, like, I'm fine. I taught you how to give a good blowjob for 25 years,
Yeah.
that's fine. There are other people that can do that now. I have
Yeah.
several books on that. This is what is exciting for me to teach people to do.
Absolutely. Will you talk to us about the link that you have found between this kind of presence and manifesting? And manifesting is also a word for our listeners. I haven't talked a lot about that on this podcast. So,
Yeah.
how do you think about manifesting and how is it something that you have put into your life in a real way?
Oh, yeah, I live it.
Yeah.
I try to pay a lot of attention. The basic example is you're in a crappy mood, you're pissed off,
Yeah.
all of a sudden you stub your toe, you get stuck in traffic,
Yeah.
you walk into the office and you spill coffee all over yourself. You know how those things happen? That is, manifestation in reverse. Basically, what we now know about how the universe works, and this is quantum physics. This is, it was all
Yeah.
started with this famous experiment, the double slit experiment.
Yeah.
Quantum physicists will actually do experiments. They have to do them in a vacuum in a different building away from them because what
Yeah.
they discovered is the conscious and unconscious feelings and expectations of the physicists determine
Yes.
how the experiment turns out on the
Yeah.
quantum because they're working on the quantum level, on the
Yeah.
level underneath everything, right? Remember what I was saying earlier. So basically, our conscious and unconscious thoughts and feelings set our body's frequency, and our bodies as transceivers are magnets that call into our consciousness
Yeah.
what matches our energetic frequency. So if you are holding a state of even just open curiosity,
Yeah.
and a little bit of optimism, much less joy, love, abundance, 51% of the time, if you just are in like a peaceful state, you
Yeah.
will be shocked
Yes.
at how drastically your life changes for the better.
Yeah.
And this is quantum physics. I go deep, and if you wanna read, I have a whole chapter on quantum love that lays out all the science
Yeah.
of how this works and all the experiments and everything else. So, basically, manifestation, we've all heard of the law of attraction or the secret,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's basically manifestation. So, we are all manifesting. Everything around us is a
Yeah.
result of what we've manifested or what we as a collective society have manifested,
Yeah.
but we're just not aware of it.
Yes.
So if you want something, it's about getting, and this is what I teach in quantum love, in particular with relation to your love life, but it works for anything. You get clear on what it is you want, how you would feel if you
Yeah.
had that thing. You move
Yeah.
into the energy of that feeling state as if it was happening right here, right now.
Yeah.
And then you that gets it that sort of supercharges it. Think of it like an old-fashioned radio dial where there's the station, which is the frequency your body is on, and the
Yeah.
volume. So the more of that feeling you can create in your system, in your body, the stronger
Yeah.
that vibrates out and helps create your reality. So everything in your current reality you have that you're perceiving with
Yeah.
your 5 senses, you have manifested.
Yeah.
For good and for bad,
Yeah. Yeah.
or the collective consciousness has manifested both. You can
Right.
only control your little piece of that.
Yes.
Now when it comes to sex magic, this is something that the ancients have been practicing for thousands of years, and basically, sexual arousal and orgasm is literally the highest frequency our body can hold.
Yeah.
It's a feeling, it's an energy of bliss in your
Yeah.
body, right? So what they discovered is when they would create an intention of something they wanted to manifest and hold that intention during deep arousal and orgasm, it was like supercharging that
Yeah.
into the quantum field.
Yeah.
And
I love
so
it. Oh, I hope this is inspiring everyone to do this.
yeah, so
Do you
it's
have a practice in the book where you really
yeah. I teach them
visually
lots of
focus? Yeah.
practices. One of them is to create what they call a sigil, which
Yes.
is a system for creating a visual representation of what you wanna manifest. So
Yes.
it's like a picture, basically, that you make from an I am statement, like, "I am a mother," you say you
Yeah.
wanna have a child, or "I am in a loving relationship," and then you kind of you get rid of all the vowels and the repeating consonants, and you're left with, like, 3 or 4 letters, and you make a symbol using those letters however you want, and I teach you
Yeah.
how to do this in the book, and you put it in a circle because that contains it, and then you keep that by your bedside or in your mind or under your pillow or wherever you're having sex,
Yeah.
and as you're getting aroused and having orgasm, I've even had people, like, hold it, you don't have to, right?
Yeah.
And even if you forget because 'cause you're really in the moment and even while you're still in the afterglow post-orgasm, you can
Yeah.
still bring it in. It is really powerful how well it works.
Yeah. And I love things like that that you can stay playful with.
Yeah,
For the listener who's like, "Well, I don't know." It's like, "Why not?"
yeah.
It's
It
it's
makes things really
it
interesting
does. It
and
makes
really
things
fun.
really interesting. So the book's been out for a year, I think.
Almost. It came out in
Almost a
June
year.
2025. Yeah, or
So
July 2025.
tell us what your hope is for new readers finding it and tell us if it has changed. I always find when when I talk to people who have written a book, a nonfiction book, the process of writing it and then seeing it go into the world and have conversations like this about it is changing the writer. So I'm
Yeah.
curious about that, if that's kind of changed any perception that you have about sex magic, and then your hope, obviously, for new readers who I hope will find it based on this conversation and just putting
Yeah.
more energy and intention around it out in the world.
Oh, I'm so grateful to you for helping get it out to the world. I think this is something that I wouldn't say that I've changed much since it's come out,
Yeah.
but it's been really beautiful and gratifying to hear from so many people about how much it's shifted things. I mean, I had one woman write and say that she had almost given up on getting pregnant, and she ended up getting
Oh.
pregnant after using
Oh,
some
that
of the
makes me
techniques.
teary. Yeah, it's
Um,
beautiful.
Lots of couples saying that they feel more deeply connected. I also think there's a time and a place for everything, and we are at a place collectively now where so many people are waking up that there is something beyond the 5 senses, that
Yes.
consciousness is kinda coming online a lot more for people.
Yes.
People are more spiritually curious,
Yeah.
like, what else might be out there? I think this book is coming at a perfect time that way, where people are
Yeah.
open and ready to
Yeah.
explore something like this, and there's no risk, that
Yes.
all it can do is enhance at the lowest level, at the least, I wouldn't say the lowest level, but at the very least, let's say, it
Yeah.
will make sex a lot more pleasurable.
Yes.
And my intention is to not only help people reach new levels of pleasure and excitement, but also a depth of experience that allows for greater intimacy and greater presence in their
Yes.
bodies and their lives.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I'm grateful to you for helping to get the word out
Oh, I
there.
loved it, and I also was very inspired, and I'll end on this to be aware of your time, but that the book is dedicated to your parents.
Yeah,
And just hearing you speak about it's actually great for, those of you listening, it's like, we go through these wounds in life, we go through these really traumatic, difficult experiences, but if you can stay conscious and present,
yeah,
and
and you can heal.
curious, I mean, it's hard to be curious right away, but to stay at least a little bit open on the other side of that is really transformational ways of thinking that then help look how many people you're helping with it. So,
Yeah, no, I'm
that feels
definitely I
beautiful.
feel like all things take us where we're meant to be, and
Yeah.
they messed me up in a million ways just like all
Yes.
our parents do, but they also repaired, not just
Yeah.
my help, but they eventually got into therapy, and that was really inspiring to me, not only seeing the way sex can take people down, which I definitely saw growing up, but also have
Yeah.
seen in a million different ways throughout my career, but also the beautiful ways that you can evolve your relationship, grow
Yeah.
your relationship, step more deeply into your connection at any stage, no matter what's happened.
Yeah.
You can repair if you both are willing to do the work, and they really were, the last 10 years of their relationship until my mother, died too soon from cancer were really beautiful.
Yes.
And that was really a gift to watch, not only the
Yeah.
devastation, but what was
Yes.
possible in repair.
Yeah. Well, I'm really grateful for your work, and I honestly, Laura, I feel like I've manifested you because I've heard you on the radio, and then I've met you in person, and now we're doing this, and now
Yeah,
I get to
look at
bring your
that.
voice to my listeners. So thank you for being here. It's awesome.
I'm grateful.
Like Laura, I feel we're all meant to experience profound pleasure. It's one of the gifts of being in a human body to experience your body feeling good. And what I've learned about that in my own life and through the lives of others who have shared their experiences with me, it's not always straightforward to open yourself up to intense, deeply connecting experiences of intimacy, especially sexual intimacy, which is a funny thing considering how intimate sex is, even when it's not. For me, it's moving towards the experience of profound pleasure one step at a time. It takes intention to downregulate and get in the body. It's a process. And I've made it a point lately to have less judgment towards myself. It's amazing how being open to your own experience without judgment creates space for you to feel good. Everything about sex magic is a practice. And the practice is meant to be approached with playfulness and curiosity. We have to choose the playfulness. We have to choose the curiosity. And the best thing about that choice is that your partner doesn't need to necessarily choose it too. Just you doing it can bring about an evolution that makes you feel closer. Laura reminds us that sex is a sacred, energetic exchange, and that energy is available to us exactly where we are today. Trust and presence are not outside of you. That's a relief. It's all available to you with the choice to practice. Laura's take on pleasure and the value that she places on bonding and using the energy of sex and connection to enrich one's entire life is an exciting invitation for each of us. Thank you, Laura, for meeting us here. After years of listening to your voice on the radio, it was so nice to be in your full presence and experience the grounded, open curiosity you hold as you bring your message to us. Sex Magic is a book that has arrived at exactly the right time, and I appreciate how you share your journey so openly and honestly so that we can feel normal in our pursuit of pleasure, which still in our culture can feel awkward and scary to talk about. Your leadership in this space has been and continues to be compassionate, courageous, and totally authentically you. Thank you for making the pathway to deeper intimacy so clear and for believing in the magic of our sex lives so that we can believe it's possible too. You can find out more about Dr. Laura Berman in the show notes and order your copy of Sex Magic wherever books are sold. And a heads up to keep an eye out for Laura's next book entitled Crying Out Loud, which will be published later this year in the fall of 2026. This is a book about grief, and although I haven't read it yet, I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful resource and guide for people who are experiencing loss and need support to navigate that tender time. In the past couple of years, Laura has become a leader in the area of grief counseling. And if this kind of support would help you or someone you know, make sure to check out Laura's offerings. Okay, y'all, that's it for now. I'll meet you here again soon. Thanks to each of you for being here and for listening. I'm so grateful we get to share life in this way. As always, full show notes are available at pagenolan.com/podcast. There you will find a full summary of the episode, timestamps, and key takeaways, and any resources mentioned in our conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love if you would leave me a rating and a review. You can do that by visiting pagenolan.com/love. Your reviews really do help people to discover the show. And if you know someone specifically who would enjoy this episode, I'm so grateful to have you all share I'll Meet You There with your friends. Lastly, if you have any questions or comments, or if you would like to share any feedback with me, please email to meetmethere@pagenolan.com. I would love to hear from you. Thank you to the team that makes this show possible. Podcast production and marketing by North Node Podcast Network. Music by Boyd McDonnell. Cover photography by Innes Casey. Okay, y'all, that's it for now. I'll meet you there again soon.